Here's the bubblegum I'm chewing tonight, by the way. Big League Chew, ground ball grape, bubblegum. Reminder, turn down your contrast, brightness on your device, so it won't be so bright in your room. Maybe, if it's not so bright in your room, you can fall asleep quicker, and easier, and perhaps you can be the winner in our ongoing challenge. First one falls asleep wins. So, start off on page 12. Hollywood, a teetotaling town? Question mark. A few people realize that although Hollywood became the epicenter of the motion picture industry, the city's original planner had something far different in mind. Carousing actors and painted ladies may have been in certain towns, but H.H. Wilcox's Haven was never intended to be one of them. Straight and narrow. Apart from its abundant sunshine and favorable climate, Hollywood, California seemed perhaps the least likely spot to base an industry that's now well known for its seedier side. H.H. Wilcox founded the Southern California city not as a progressive hamlet with its eye on an ever-evolving future, but rather as its polar opposite. The city was intended as a preservationist society where modern excesses would not be tolerated. That it turned into something else is a story in itself. This is the place. Wilcox and his wife, Data, arrived in Los Angeles in the mid-1880s. A real estate developer of considerable means, Wilcox purchased large tracts of land in Southern California for the purpose of resale. And, like any good businessman, he was always on the lookout for more. But in 1887, tragedy struck when the couple's 19-month-old son died of typhoid fever. To ease their despair, the couple took carriage rides into the country. On one of those therapeutic jaunts, Wilcox spied a particularly charming patch of land featuring orange groves and apple orchards, bordered by the picturesque Santa Monica Mountains. This particular chunk of the Cahuenga Valley struck the developer as a perfect place to start a town. A town develops. The formidable challenge of establishing a town would be daunting to most, but Wilcox was well equipped for the task. Crippled by the same disease that had claimed his infant son, Wilcox had been accustomed to overcoming hardships on the way to achieving his goals. Certain of the elements that he desired for his settlement and those that he did not, Wilcox, a strong advocate of the temperature movement, an organized effort to abolish alcohol backed by people who saw drinking as immoral, got busy purchasing a 120-acre expanse for his version of utopia, Wilcox offered free lots to anyone who would construct Protestant churches on the land. His goal was a society free from saloons, bordellos, red light districts, excesses that he deemed counterproductive to a clean Christian lifestyle. His wife, Dada, came up with the name Hollywood, although it's believed that she copied it from another woman's estate. Either way, the name stuck, and the town began its ascendance to infamy. Slow growth. Unfortunately, Wilcox's hope for an idyllic Protestant community never gained much ground, though efforts to keep the original conservatism lasted until about 1911. Population growth was agonizingly slow. There were never more than a few hundred residents in Wilcox's lifetime, and the return on his investment was disappointingly poor. When he died in 1892, Wilcox was up to his ears in land holdings, but was surprisingly cash poor. Nevertheless, Hollywood was poised to become one of the most recognizable places on earth. Unfortunately for the devoted teetotaler, the town's notoriety would come not for its virtues, but for something far, far different. A giant arrives, like a condor taking nest amongst hummingbirds. The motion picture industry swooped down upon Hollywood, 1911. Like Florida before it, Hollywood was chosen for its frost-free climate, but the western locale also offered plenty of wide open spaces at low prices so that studios could own their own property. Plus, California was known for its varying terrain and landscapes: deserts, mountains, beaches, small towns, urban centers, which allowed for a variety of genres to be filmed within a radius of a few miles. The Nestor Film Company was the first studio to set up shop there. Located in a former tavern at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Gower Street, the modest building would soon be joined by larger studios, which triggered a veritable explosion of commerce. Banks, clubs, restaurants, hotels, movie palaces, and other supporting industries stood at the periphery, ready and willing and able to feed at the studio's trough of prosperity. Not surprisingly, these new intruders met with considerable resistance and hostility from the town's original residents. Despite such protests, acres of agricultural land gave way to new housing, and existing homes were displaced in favor of commercial buildings. The economic infrastructure and the local government in Los Angeles were in favor of the burgeoning industry, and they offered incentives to the studios that the political leaders and banking institutions in Florida had not done. The message was abundantly clear: the motion picture industry was there to stay. Those opposed would simply have to get out of the way. Tinseltown. Over time, the once anonymous hamlet in the Cahuenga Valley grew into a movie-making metropolis, with excesses of every sort playing out off and on screen. The thought of people openly enjoying alcohol or walking the streets barely clothed would cause Wilcox to turn over in his grave. But today, the founder's name lives on in a bronze plaque situated at Hollywood and Vine. Curiously, the sign mentions nothing of the town's original goal of purity. Within eyesight of the marker stands an assortment of bars, tattoo parlors, and places that decent people like H.H. Wilcox don't talk about. Such, it seems, is the price of progress. Okay. Behind the TV shows of our time, the Globe, that once appeared in the background of NBC Nightly News, actually spun the wrong way for years before someone caught on. I think I remember it was a black and white Globe. The first and last lines ever spoken on Seinfeld were exactly the same. Jerry tells George, "See, now to me, that button is in the worst possible spot. The second button literally makes or breaks the shirt. Look at it. It's too high. It's in no man's land." I didn't realize that. Before landing the role of Jerry Seinfeld's quirky neighbor Kramer, Michael Richards auditioned to play Al Bundy on Married with Children. The role of Monica on Friends was offered to Janine Garofalo, who turned it down. Lee Remini, later cast in The King of Queens, also tried out for the part. The empty frame on Monica's door on Friends was supposed to have a mirror on it. After a crew member accidentally broke it, producers decided that they liked the way it looked and left it there. Paul Reiser played the piano in the opening theme song of Mad About You. A sticker on Dwight Schrute's desk on the American version of The Office says Froggy 101, which is the name of an actual country music station in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where the show takes place. The Office's John Krasinski and B.J. Novak went to high school together and were in the same grade in Newton, Massachusetts. Michael Keaton began his career as a stagehand on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He helped to puppeteer and operate the trolley. Queen of the Soaps. When two Chicago radio stations first put soap operas on the air in the 1930s, they revolutionized the broadcasting industry. Steamy romantic trysts, strained family relationships, mysterious medical conditions. These plot twists set soap operas apart from all other programming, while daytime serials have both their dedicated fans and their contemptuous detractors. There's no question that they make up one of the most endearing genres of mass media. Enter Erna. In the 1920s, the young radio industry was growing in popularity, but the majority of its regular programming went out over the airwaves at night in both national and local markets. No one believed that daytime shows could draw enough listeners to make a profit. That all changed when Erna Phillips, who was earning a living as a radio actress at Chicago's WGN, proposed a daytime program called Painted Dreams. Developed with a female audience in mind, the saga followed Mother Moynihan and her troubled family. The station managers took a gamble on the 15-minute serial, which made its debut in October 1930, and found an eager audience of housewives who embraced the melodrama as a welcome distraction from their daily routines. Since then, the soap opera has been a staple of daytime programming. Phillips both wrote and acted in the show for the next 2 years until an ownership dispute drove her to WMAQ, where she put on a similar show called Today's Children. She soon struck deals with the national networks and created several more daytime dramas, including The Guiding Light. Thanks almost entirely to the genre Phillips invented in Chicago. The national network saw the revenue from daytime programming triple during the 1930s. Temptresses, cliffhangers, and organ music. As her show evolved, Phillips created many of the family's conventions we all expect from a soap opera. She structured each episode as a series of brief vignettes that moved back and forth between storylines. Her shows relied on organ music to stress the important actions or facial expressions, and cliffhangers kept audiences coming back day after day. She was also the first to introduce a temptress character, a conniving woman who thrives on using deception or trickery to steal men away from her competition. By the early 1940s, Phillips had 5 of her soap operas in national syndication, and she soon moved them to television. She gave up acting but continued to write all the shows. At one point, she estimated that she was churning out 2 million words of script per year. She developed a particular working style in which she would create the scenes by acting them out herself, switching back and forth between characters. Her assistants would write up the script as they watched her. Over the years, Phillips created some of the best-known soap operas in American history, including Days of Our Lives, As the World Turns. 2 of her employees eventually went on to create enduring soaps of their own. William Bell and Agnes Nixon, both also Chicagoans, were responsible for The Young and the Restless, One Life to Live, and All My Children. Phillips continued working on her shows from Chicago until shortly before her death, 1973, but her influence has endured to this day. During the 1990s, 8 of the 11 nationally broadcast television soaps could be traced directly to her or to one of her protégés, earning Phillips the undisputed title Queen of the Soaps. Hollywood's urban legends. If there ever was a breeding ground for urban legends, it would be in the Hollywood Hills. Simply put, people love to hear all sorts of gossip about stars and movies. The weirder the better. Here are some of the strangest urban legends to come out of Hollywood. Humphrey Bogart was the Gerber baby. Remember the Gerber baby? Let's see. Everyone knows the famous black and white drawing of the baby that graces Gerber baby food products. Well, there's an urban legend that the baby is none other than actor Humphrey Bogart. The rumor may stem from the fact that Bogart's mother, Maud, was an illustrator who actually did sell drawings of her son to advertising agencies. In fact, she did allow one of her drawings of Humphrey to be used in a baby food advertisement. For Mellon's baby food, Gerber did not start producing baby food until 1928, and by that time, Bogart was 29 years old, making it unlikely, but not impossible, that he was the Gerber baby. We now know that Anne Turner Cook was the model. In 1928, she was drawn by artist Dorothy Hope Smith, who submitted the drawing to Gerber. Disney on Ice. In life, Walt Disney warmed the hearts of millions. In death, Disney is rumored to have had himself frozen until such a time that scientists would warm him up and bring him back to life. What sounds like something out of a science fiction movie may have been rooted in the fact that Walt Disney liked to keep his personal life private. So when he died, specifics about his burial were kept under wraps, leading to all sorts of speculation. When rumors were further fueled, when Disney was buried in Forest Lawn Cemetery in Glendale, California, which does not publicly list who is interred there, but Disney's unfrozen remains are indeed there, in the Freedom Mausoleum, along with those of several family members. That's interesting. 3 Men and a Baby and a Ghost. Remember that? There's a scene in the movie 3 Men and a Baby from 1987 in which Ted Danson's character Jack and his mother are walking through Jack's house while the mother is holding the baby. As they walk in front of the window, the ghostly image of a boy is seen standing in the background. When the characters walk by the window a second time, the boy has been replaced by what appears to be a shotgun. Legend has it that the ghost is that of a boy who accidentally shot himself to death with a shotgun in the house where the movie was filmed. Of course, the truth is a little less spooky. What many people mistake for the boy's apparition is nothing more than a cardboard cutout of Danson, which was supposed to be part of a subplot involving Jack's appearance in a dog food commercial. And those scenes weren't filmed in a house either. They all took place on a studio set in Toronto. Munchkin suicide in The Wizard of Oz. In The Wizard of Oz movie from 1939, shortly after Dorothy and the Scarecrow convinced the Tin Man to join their posse, they began singing and skipping down the yellow brick road. As they round the bend in the road and dance off the screen, a strange dark shape can be seen moving in a bizarre fashion to the left of the road. It is said one of the Munchkins, heartbroken over a failed love affair, chose to take his own life as the cameras rolled. It makes for a creepy story, but there's no truth to it. What people are actually seeing is nothing more than an exotic bird flapping its wings. Prior to filming, the director decided that adding strange exotic birds to the scene would give it more color, so he rented several birds from the LA Zoo and allowed them to roam freely about the set. We'll start off with some fun movie quotes. Part 3, famous movie